Kumla and Avlak Gemara. Today's daf is Daf Zayin. This is Friday's Gemara. So we had a machlekes in the Mishnah to the Chachamim Rabbi Yehuda. How many Tanoim make up the Supreme Court of Sanhedrin Daf? According to Chachamim, it's 71, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's only 70. Now we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was told, gather for me 70 people. So obviously the Chacham hold that Moshe Rabbeinu is included, which means 70 plus 1, so total Sanhedrin 71. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, Moshe Rabbeinu was not part of the Sanhedrin. He was the overseer of the Sanhedrin, but he was not part of the Sanhedrin. What are you explain this machlekes on what the basis is? Says the Gemara, we're up to actually to Zayin on the day is the very last line. Sanhedrin Gedolah, my time, but why? What's the svar of the Rabbanon and the Ami? Why do they say that Moshe al Gabei and the Moshe was included with them? Because Omakra, the pasuk says, they should stand there with you, imach, with you, ba'at b'hadayu. They should all be together. So there was Moshe Rabbeinu together with the 70 people that the Eivusha told them to organize. And Rabbi Yehuda learns, no, imach, they should stand with you, not because that you are part of Sanhedrin, but because mishum shchina, that they should stand next to you outside of the oil, because the Shekhinah is inside the Mishkan, and they cannot be in the Mishkan. They should stand outside next to you. That's all Ibach means. But not that you and them are all part of the same group. Or Rashi says another pshat of Shekhinah is that they wanted to have some sense of prophecy or some sense of Shekhinah. And on them, as it says in the pasuk about Salti, that I will give part of myself, it has to go through Moshe. So they had to stand next to Moshe, but not because he was part of Sanhedrin. And the Rabbanon say, Omakra, it says in Pasuk, Nosu itcha b'masa it says that they should carry with you the weight of the people. In other words, it sounds like that they're going to shoulder responsibility together with you. Itcha b'adayu, you together with them. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, itach means b'doim melach, means we should be similar to you, that they should have good pedigree and that they should be flawless. Otherwise, it does just mean that they should similar to you, not that you and them are part of the same group, but part of the same Sanhedrin. Rabbanon, okay, agree, but there's another pasuk. They make your light and your burden and they'll carry it with you. In other words, they'll listen to other people's disputes. Again, we see they're all part of the same group. Nafka, we learn out from there. And because it says, they learn that how do you know that the Sanhedrin have to be similar to you in stature and eminence, that they learn out from it says v'nosu itcha, that the small Sanhedrin and they should be similar to you, the Alpha Sanhedrin, the Sanhedrin Tana. Since that's talking about the smaller Sanhedrin, and we learn out that the larger Sanhedrin surely should be similar to the small Sanhedrin. So that's how we know they should be similar to you. So what do we do with the pasuk? When there's 70 people, it says v'nosu itach, the masam, it means that they join together, you one group. Part of what we learned, it says by Yisharu Shnei Anoshim Machne, 2 people were left in the camp. There were 2 people that Moshe Rabbeinu had to gather 70 people together. The problem is, as we'll see in a minute, if you take 6 from every Shevet, it's 72. There were 2 extra. So there were 2 people who were not part of, who were supposed to be part of the group, but then were not, because only 70 were allowed. How did they remain? So yes, I mean, there's a few opinions. One opinion says they were left behind. There was a lottery, and 2 of them did not succeed. Hashem told Moshe to gather me 70 people. Moshe, Kate said, what should I do? Every I select 6 for every Shevet. There'll be 72. Every chamisha, so I take 5 from each Shevet. I'll be short. Will be only 60. I'll be short 60. Every if I decide that certain shvatim will have 6 and 2 shvatim will only have 5, you can imagine what kind of acrimony it will be. There'll be all kinds of rivalry between the shvatim. Ma'asa, what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Bida shisha. He selected 6 from each group, each shevet, and then Vehevi Shiva Vishnai Piskin, Al Shivim, Chasav Zakin. He took 72 pieces of wood, and on 70 of them he wrote the word Zakin. In other words, you will be a member of Sanhedrin, and Vishnayim and 2 he left blank. Bololon, he mixed them all up, the Noslan big kalpi and placed them inside this box. I told each one, buy you a little pikas from each one of you, take your piece of paper, your little piece. Call me shall be doesn't remember, it has the word Zakin Amak Shmaim. You were selected. Misha Allah be other cholak Amar Hamakim Lechafizbach. Those that picked up the blanks, he said, the Abisha said, I don't want you. If I need myself, what can't help you? So no, this way they had a lottery. It wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu's fault. There were all kinds of opinions in the Rishonim what actually happened over here. In fact, some Rishonim say that Elder Maida decided not to pick any numbers and let everyone else pick, and therefore miraculously because they were such unloving, they didn't want to be selected. They wanted to embarrass everybody. They ended up with the blank pieces while everybody else had some pieces. But there are all kinds of opinions as to what actually happened there. Similarly, we find a similar problem that Moshe Rabbeinu had, and he had to rely on a lottery where when we swapped the Bechorers to the Leviim, it was a difference of 273, and each Bechorer was swapped for a Levi. So what did they do? So similarly, that those 273 don't have a Bechorer to take their place, have to pay 5 shkolim. From the Pchorim, 273 more Pchorim than Levim, so they had to pay 5 shkolim to redeem themselves. Oh, my case, what should I do? L'Yisrael, Imam L'Televian, if I tell the Pchorim, give me a pigeon, but say, and go out, Yomli Kwapadani Ben Levi. Each one will argue, I'm equal to a Ben Levi, I don't have to pay you. Ma'os, what did he do? Hevi Esim B'Shnaim Alaf and Piskin. He brought 22,000 pieces of wood. V'chazal and Ben Levi, wrote as Levi. Al Shloisha B'Shiva Saima 273. Kosole Chamisha Shkolim. He wrote in it, you have to pay 5 shkolim. Bolon, he mixed them all up. And also Makalpi placed in his box. Amalani said, Tlut Pikaschem, take your little piece. Misha Olu B'Yodeh Ben Levi. Amalek Kvapidach Ben Levi. Whoever selected Ben Levi. He said, well, you selected Ben Levi and you're free, you don't have to pay anything. And Misha will be in a Chamesh Kolim, I'm like 10 opinions would say, those who had 5 Kolim, he said, go take the opinion and go. In other words, it's not my fault, this is how the Girdle selected. That's one view. Rav Shimon says, that the Machen and the Shtairu, that they remain behind in the camp. What do you mean remain behind the camp? Moshe Esli Shivis Academy said people Elder the Maida quoted last came about places in Chumash was Moshe Rabbeinu's half brothers. When Amram divorced Yocheved, she married someone else and had Elder the Maida, so they were half brothers in between Aaron and Moshe. There's a whole discussion on how did Amram take her back afterwards. Ein anu ruyin lo'isegedula. So we're not worthy of this greatness. Hashem said, nothing to do with the lottery. Because he was so humble. I'll make you even greater. How do you make them greater? All other Nabim, they basically prophesy and then they stopped. No, it was the 70s came. They all said the V's at that moment, but Moshe Rabbeinu selected them, and that was it. They continued saying the V's and they didn't stop. What exactly did they say? They said Moshe Mace, Yeshua Machnis. Moshe will pass away and Yeshua will bring him into Israel. And we'll come back to that in a minute. No, they were talking about the slav of what's going to happen, that the people complained that they weren't satisfied with the mun and they wanted the quail. And they said, Ali Slav, go up, Slav, go up, Slav. And they prophesied about the Slav. Rav Nachman said they prophesied of the Iske Gog and Magog. They were discussing in the future, Mashiach will come, the or of Gog and Magog. That's what it says in Yisrael. It says, this is what Hashem said, you are Hashem Debarti that I spoke about the Yomim Hagi. Hashem said to Gog, I spoke about in the early days, the Yad Avodah Nevi Yisrael, in the hands of my servants, the Nevi Yisrael, is referring to Elder Maiden, Hanavim B'Yom Mehem, that they prophesied in those days, Shanim, about in the future years, that you will attack me. I'll take Rishonim Eloshnaim too. Who are the two that said the simultaneously, concurrently, have Eldad Umeidad. He was elder who made it. And we'll come back to all this. We learned all of the prophecy, and then they stopped. The haters not with the Pascha, they continued the prophecy, and they didn't stop. And no one the Pascha, how do you know that they stopped? It says Vayisnabu. They said prophecy. V'lo Yosher, they didn't continue. Elamiatav, that's what it means. So when Hashem says Kol Godel by Har Sinai, Kol Godel V'lo Yosef, there's this tremendous sound. V'lo Yosef, it didn't continue. Hashem didn't continue. Ella, but rather the like posuk who it means in the contrary, it didn't stop. So how do we know that it stopped? That's a different word. There it says they said prophecy. And when it comes to elder maiden, Yeshua went and reported and talked to Moshe Rabbeinu. It says misnabim. They're continuing to say in the It said I misnabim continuing. And what exactly did they say? So one opinion, the Gemara is the slug, that the last one was going to Mogi, but the first one is a Moshe Meis Yeshua Machlis. Now, how does the Gemara actually know that he said Moshe Meis Yeshua Machlis? Some say because the word misnabim is Meis Nevi'im, that the Nevi'im will pass away. That's the main Navi was Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest Navi. The other, everyone said a beautiful pshat, that it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was called Moshe because min hamayim mishisu, from the water he was dragged out. He was saved by Pari's daughter, and Bisya Bas Pari. He grammatically should have said mi mayim mishisu, not min hamayim. An extra nun and hey. The problem is, if it would say mim mayim mem yud mem is a Rosh Hashanah. Moshe Meis Yeshua Machlis. So they didn't want to say even to allude to that. So that's why the Torah says min hamayim. But when the elder maiden was saying prophecy in the camp, it says they were saying machne. Machne is made of two words. Mach, which means to erase. Nun hey, erase the nun hey. Min hamayim reverts back to min mayim. Moshe Meis Yeshua Machlis. So they were prophesying Moshe pass away. That's what says. I think it's we should punish them, and then we should basically, put them to death and let them, pass away because they're saying terrible things. Moshe is dying. Among them, another two, which is about the slum or about the my Adoni Moshe Klein. Why were they saying that Moshe Rabbeinu? Let's finish off Elder Rabbeinu. So you know what? The lab because it's like the saying the teacher we learned a few weeks ago that you're not allowed to paskin before your teacher. Even if you have a shus, you have to do it outside the meal. Difficult more to understand because we're talking about a navi, you're not paskin. A navi is not allowed to conceal any navias that they had. On the other hand, you have the first pass to the head. And maybe therefore they didn't pass by the Sanhedrin, so I should pass away. And then why? Because they shouldn't have said prophecy without first running it by Moshe. These two Slav Heinz says that I wish many like them. And Moshe makes and what is it Moshe makes when he was happy that they were running around saying Moshe didn't pass away? So what answers Moshe didn't hear exactly they said. He just heard that. They said, he said, oh, that's a wonderful thing. My calling, what do you mean? What was their calling? Actually, does it mean to be put to death? No. Give them responsibilities, community responsibilities. They make this pressure of being responsible, of being a leader in the community. We'll finish them off on their own. Teresa is interesting, says, it doesn't mean that they physically will pass away, but it means is that if you give them responsibility, the community become a rogue or a leader, there will be so much pressure that they become depressed. And when you become depressed, Hashem does not really give you any nevi'as, because nevi'as can only be given when you're in a state of simcha, joy. Then the mission continues. Okay, so we know we need 20%. Shaftu Ada is 10 people, so it says twice. Shaftu, judge, Tzila is safe, so you have 20. But how do you get 23? So we say you need an extra 2 people. So that makes it 22. Number say 3. What do you mean extra 2? Because it says in the Mishnah that when it comes to find someone innocent, a majority of 1 is enough. To find someone, you need a majority of 2. Therefore, 22, but 22, you be obvious. If the Torah says any majority of two, you'll never have a majority of two. Because if it's let's say 10 and 10, obviously nothing. If it's 11 to 10, nothing. If it's 12 to 10, whatever you have this, 22, have it, 23, 23 will be 13 to 10. So a majority of three, never a majority of two. So when will we ever fulfill what the Torah says there should be a majority of two? Says the Gemara, safe, we're wrong. Never find a majority of two for either three, which is passable, or one, which is not. If 11 find the person is. So 10 find him innocent, 13 find guilty, majority of three, not two. Amar Bavura, who says, Abavu says, you won't find it you won't find it only when you have to continue to add. Because if one of the then he steps aside and we continue adding in multiples of two. And the dividend goes to everybody, because you have 23 judges, and then you keep on adding two. But with one of the judges, I don't know, so he no longer counts. And now it's an even number, a majority of two. And with Sanhedrin Daf, and we're talking about Sanhedrin Daf. When do we have an even number? Only if you follow up Yehuda that says that the maximum you can have is 70 people. That's an even number. And the person who said, I don't know, doesn't count. But Amar Abu said, when it comes to adding Oisim Bezin Shakel, we turn it into an even number Bezin, Lechatchila. Even though normally we say we want an odd number, but in this case we have an even number. Isn't that the way it is? It's obvious. No, Mauta, I would have thought, I to come in a day, and the one is, I don't know, that is no longer, you can't discount the person. What happened to the person later on changes, has an opinion? Oh, now I know. Do we value that opinion? We would have thought yes. Kamadi says if he's there. Says something we listen to Marshalom that we don't. The Haida come any day. The moment the Dayan says, recuse himself, I don't know, command the lesson that we no longer exists. And if he comes back later with an opinion, we ignore it. We don't even listen. This is one of the most perplexing halachas, and it's been challenged by many. Sanhedrin Shiro Kul L'Chayla. If you have a Sanhedrin, who all of them decided the person is guilty. We send the person home and he's innocent. My time or why? Kiva the Gemiri Halonas Din. We know that you have to leave, you're not a bezin on the paskin on the spot, to have to leave it overnight and debate it and come back to the Mevelis in order to see whether they can find some these people, once they decided they deemed this person guilty, they won't find his chus. Amazing things. Everybody thinks the person is guilty. And yet, if let's say the Tayyip doesn't actually saw what happened, and yet the person will go innocent, they go free. Very difficult, and the Shani were asked about it. So first you have a Rameh that's quoted by others, even though now Rameh we don't have it. But the Rameh says it's the opposite. Paitanoisa means you don't need halamas, then you don't have to wait till tomorrow. You can immediately sentence the person to death. The Rambam changes the Gemara around. He says, not that Sanhedrin Shiro Kul L'Chayla, Sanhedrin should posku. In other words, from the beginning, all of them felt the guy is guilty. That's no good because you didn't debate it properly, and there's no way in the world now you will debate it properly. But if after debating it for a couple of days or a day, they all come to the conclusion the person's guilty, that's a different story. Then you're allowed to. And then the Sikhs talks more about it. He talks about the idea that in order to be a dayan, you have to be able to see the good and the bad in everybody. And if they determine the person's bad, they will never be able to see the neshama of the person, what makes the person tick. Anyway, so the Gemara continues. In fact, we have the famous conundrum that the Rambam writes that a bezdin of the commercial law, you take it down, so in the commercial law, you have a majority of one, a bezdin of three, and then you have for Malchus, which is also bezdin of three, but Malchus and Misa and everything else have different dinim, and he says that by Misa, you have to have a majority of two, and if they all find the person guilty, then the person is innocent. And he said the same thing applies to Malchus. So the conundrum is, how will a person ever be sentenced for Malchus? Because You have a Bezdin of 3. If you need a majority of 2. If 2 people say the person is guilty and one is innocent, you won't get Malkus, won't receive Malkus because you need a majority of 2, like Dinin and Fashas. So then, if you have a majority of 2, that means it has to be unanimous because only 3 people on the bench. But if you have 3 people on the bench and they all find the person guilty, we said now the person is innocent. So according to the Rambam, who says that you can't find, it could be a unanimous decision, but we're just talking about the opening line, how the initial considerations. It has to be open-minded, see whether you can find the person innocent. And I guess we can find by Malkus the same thing. There's a famous question, a debate. What happens? You have a Sanhedrin 23. 22 people found this person guilty. It's the 23rd judge's the 23rd judge's turn to give a decision. He believes in his heart of hearts the guy is innocent. Is he allowed, permitted to say the guy is, and maybe more than permitted, maybe he has to say that the guy is guilty? So then the halacha would be the guy is innocent, because we have a rule that says the hitzilu ha'eda, you have to go out of your way to try to save the person who's being accused or alleged as an alleged criminal. So since he believes the guy is innocent and 22 judges said the guy is guilty, maybe he has a duty to say the guy is guilty so that he'll be found innocent and you fulfilled the mitzvah of the hitzilu ha'eda. Interesting debate. Most conclude that you have to be honest. You can't lie, because if you believe the guy is innocent, then you have to say innocent, and you'll be. And the Torah takes over 22 against 1, who'll be found guilty. Any other Gemara continues. Amr Birchner said, "Ein Moishivin." Another interesting thing here. It says, "Who are the candidates for Sanhedrin?" The following criteria. You would think the criteria should be solely based on knowledge and acumen. No. First, Baalei Kaima, they need to be tall. If they are short, they're not imposing, they don't carry authority. So we want tall people. We have the same thing in Gemara Shabbos that a Kohen Gadol has to be someone that's tall. Even though the Besira says that all tall people are fools, but the Gemara clearly says over here, you need a Baalei Kaima, someone who is tall. So he carries authority. Then you need Baalei Chachma, wise, obviously. Ubaalei Mara, they should be handsome. Again, so people should respect them naturally. And then it says, Ubaalei Zikna. They should also be Baalei Zikna. What exactly is Baalei Zikna? They should be older people, because later on in the Gemara we're going to learn that if someone is too old and they don't raise children anymore, they forgot what it means to have pain. They lose the concept of empathy and sympathy. We want judges that know how to empathize and sympathize with people. And so what exactly is Baalei Zikna? Some say 50 years old is the ideal age, even though we discussed before that 18 years old, in fact, in Shulchan Aruch Paskin, if you're 18 years old, you can be a dayan already. A Rav should be 40, but a dayan should be 18. Ubaalei Kshafim, they also should know witchcraft. Why should they know witchcraft? So Rashi says here, so that they should be able to put to death those wizards and warlocks who rely on their kishuf to save themselves from bezin, and also to be able to realize if somebody is making kishuf. Other Rishonim say that if a kishuf, somebody who does kishuf, and they can prevent the bezin from punishing them through their witchcraft, the bezin should be able to override it. And then there's the whole question: is bezin allowed to use witchcraft? So we're saying more than just knowing about it. Is bezin allowed to use witchcraft in order to kill them? Can you do this an aveira in order to do a mitzvah? Discussion in its own right. And the Yodim Ba'ayin Losh, we want them to know 70 languages. We don't want the Sanhedrin to hear the testimony through a middleman. We want them to hear directly from the person. So they should know this is the criteria for being a member of the Sanhedrin. Amar Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, you don't appoint a member of the Sanhedrin unless they're so intelligent they know how to take a sheretz, so the Torah clearly says it's tummy, and find a way to say that it is Torah. The Gemara will say one way right now. Rabbein Tam says he has a problem there. What's the point of having a kal v'chomer against the Torah? But it seems the Gemara says we just learned that we want that people should look at the defendant and find a schus in that person. In other words, you have to be able to see things, a lateral thinker see things differently. And this is a continuation of that. That even though ostensibly it's awesome, and maybe find a way that is Torah, even though it's not going to be a final conclusion, but at least you can argue and say maybe the guy is innocent. Otherwise, you're not qualified to be a member of the Bezdin. I once heard from my father, don't know if it's his word or not. It says in Pirkei Avos. It says here that what? I'm going to finish here. And that you should what? That you should not put a member of the Sanhedrin unless he knows how to be retired or sheretz. Rav said, "Ani Adon, I will." And we learned another Gemara. Rameh was able to retire a sheretz in 150 different ways. Amar Rav said, "Ani Adon, I'll show you how I can make a sheretz tire." Man noch a snake. Causes generates so much tum in the world. Tar is tar sheretz. A sheretz, the 8 shrots of the Torah says atami. That doesn't kill anybody, doesn't threaten anybody, and doesn't add any tumor to the world. Ain't adin surely she hate tar, should be tar. So therefore, here's a way of saying that a sheretz should be tar. And Rabbeinu Tam says we're talking about from if it dies as an avela, it should not be Tamei Tumas Masa by carrying it. Touching it, yes, but not Masa. However, it's a weak Kalochem, in fact, not a Kalochem at all. Mideh to have a Akoitz Ba'alma, take a thorn. A snake is like a thorn pricks the thorn can kill people. I'm a Kabbalah. But I was telling before, it says another Gemara that you have 150 ways of being retired or share. It's an idea that a member of Sanhedrin should be able to see things from all different angles. And this is what it says in Pirkei Avos. Al tastakel bekankan el mashiyesh. Don't look at the barrel, but look what's inside the barrel. So one of the pshat is al tastakel bekan. Kan is kufnun. Don't look at the idea. Oh, I have 150 ways of being retired or sheretz. But mashiyesh, what's behind it? And behind it is that a real good dayan, should be able to see every situation from 2 angles before he comes to the conclusion that the guy is guilty. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav says of his name Rav, Kol Irsha Ein Bo Shnayim L'Daber. The Echel L'Shmai, any city doesn't have 2 people who can speak all languages, at least 1 person who can understand it. Ein Meshivim Bo Sanhedrin, you don't put a Sanhedrin in that city. Why not? As Rashi explains, because then they cannot hear directly from the defendant or from the plaintiff, and they have to hear from a middleman. That's no good. So 3 is enough. Now it's very questionable here because all 70 dayanim should speak 70 languages. Otherwise, the other dayanim won't be able to understand directly from let's say 23 judges. All 23 should understand it. Otherwise, they're not hearing it. Saadia Gaon holds that even the Bezdin of 23, the 3 judges are really the Makabel the Edis, and then the other 23 come there for the sentence. And so therefore, as long as 3 understand 70, it's good enough. Just like you have the idea of Het Meir Rabbanim. And Het Meir Rabbanim, we have 100 Rabbanim that can allow this person to marry a second wife if the first, for whatever reason, the first wife didn't work out, and certain extenuating circumstances. They don't need all 100 Rabbanim to interrogate the chassan and find out what happened. It's sufficient if 3 of them, 3 different communities, and the rest then just rely on them. The Ramban argues of Saadia Gaon very strongly, vociferously, in fact. So it is difficult to understand exactly how it works with only 3 people, 3 Dayanim understanding the 70 languages. What about the rest? With 3, but Yavna 4 Dayanim understood all languages. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Hercules, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, the Shimon HaTimni. Some people say that it's pronounced Ha-Timni, and however, Rabbi Yaakov Ender says it's supposed to be pronounced Shimon Ha-Teimani, not Ha-Timni. So for some Gemaras you'll see they write Timni, because they follow that first opinion I just told you, and other Gemaras that say that it's Ha-Teimani, they follow Rabbi Yaakov Ender, who writes clearly that he's definitely Ha-Teimani. Anyway. So these three judges, they knew 70 language, and Shimon HaTimni don lifnei makarka. He was not qualified to be a judge. He was a student, but very, very astute, and he would discuss with them. And Shimon HaTimni. Now, why was he a student? Rashi says he didn't get smicha because he didn't reach the age of getting smicha. Fascinating. I mentioned last time. There are 4 people who were Tanoim who did not reach the age of smicha, never had smicha. And what's perplexing is, or ironic, all of them are called Shimon. Shimon HaTimni, Ben Zayma, Shimon Ben Zayma, Ben Azai, Shimon Ben Azai was to learn, and Benanas, Shimon Benanas. All four of them are called Shimon, and none of them had smicha. Don't know why. Mason asked a question. Shlishi, so you have three judges who couldn't speak all languages. Is Chachma. The is if you have four, Ein L'mayla Himen. There are others Shani who don't learn the way we just learned, because this is Rashi and many Shani that talk about languages. Others say talk about knowledge, not about languages, because they believe that all 70 judges, or the majority of 70 judges, should speak the language. Grammar says majority, but rather we're talking about knowledge, that they have to really know everything in halach and other things as well. The V is Ein L'mayla Himen. If you have four, unbelievable. So Gemara says, so you just said that three is unbelievable. Here it says four is unbelievable. So he follows the following Tanya. Tanya, we learned. You said before, Rav Yehuda's name Rav. All you need is two who can speak and one to understand. Here in the Brisa it says three to speak and a fourth to understand. He follows the following Tanya. Tanya, we learned Shniya Chachma Shlish L'Mayla. This Brisa clearly says two is mandatory to speak, and the three is unbelievable. Now the Gemara, this is incredible. We're 2/3 of the way through Shas, and like every sefer, you have a glossary and explaining different words they use. The Gemara now, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis and Sefer Sanhedrin, 2/3 of the way into Shas, the Gemara doesn't give us a glossary where we said this word, this name. Who are we referring to? We said this name. Who are we referring to? We have some common names without sort of anonymous. Who are we referring to? So the Gemara goes through them now. Time we learned if it says Limeidin Lifnei Chachamim, we learned before Chachamim. Who learned before Chachamim? Is it Levi from Rebbe? Levi learned from Rebbe. That's who we're referring to. When you find the expression Donin Lifnei Chachamim, we're debating before the Chachamim. That's Shimon ben Azai, Shimon ben Zayma, Chanan HaMitzri, and Chananya ben Chachinoi. Nach Mitzcha adds 5. He adds Shimon, Chanan Chananya. He says also Shimon Hatimni. However, Ben Chananel learns, that's how Rashi learns. Ben Chananel learns that Shimon is Benanis, Shimon Benanis. Rabbi Seinu should a bubble. Whenever you find the expression of Rabbi is a bubble, that's Rabbi Shmuel. Whenever you find the expression of Rabbi Seinu Beit Yisrael, that's Rabbi Abba. That is Rabbi Abba. Interesting why he's called Rabbi Seinu in plural when it's only one person, Rabbi Abba. Dayone Goyle, the judges in Golis, is Karna. We had in Rashbam Basa, there's actually Shmuel and Karna. Dayone Beit Yisrael, the judge of Yisrael, is Rabbi Amir Abasi. Dayone the Pumpadisa, the judge of Pumpadisa, is Rabbi Papa Bar Shmuel. Papa, the son of Shmuel. Dayoni, the Nerdoi, the judge of the Nerdoi, is Abba Baminyumi. Is Abba Baminyumi. Again, it's in plural, and it's only referring to one person. Savi the Surah, the elders of Surah, Rav Huna and Rav Chizda. Savi the Pumpadisa, the elders of Pumpadisa, is Rav Yehuda and Rav Eina. Charifa the Pumpadisa, the sharp ones of Pumpadisa, is Eifa v'Abima b'nei Rach. These are sharp ones of Pumpadisa. Amoroi the Pumpadisa. The word Amoida means actually like a maturgum in Yisrael. Amoida is in bubble, so that's where the name Amoida comes from. That you stand up there and you relay what the teacher said in a lot of voice. Amoroi the Pumpadisa. The Amoroim of Pumpadisa is Rabba and Rabbi Yosef. Amoroi the Neherdoi. Who are the Amoroim Neherdoi? Rabbi Chama. Again, plural, it's only one. Nahar Beloi Mas, that says Nahar Beloi learned, it's Rami Bar Bichbi. Amri Beirav, whenever it says that the yeshiva of Rav said, who's the yeshiva of Rav? We had this so many times. That's Rav Huna. Rav Huna was reading Talmud of Rav. So how could it be? Rav Huna Amri Beirav. It says sometimes Rav Huna said in the name of Beirav. That means obviously Rav Huna is not Amri Beirav. El Rav Hamnuna. It's Rav Hamnuna. And here Rav Machlek is showing exactly what it means, according to Rashi and other places, traces quotes, is that really it's Rav Huna. But when it's impossible to be Rav Huna, we'll say it's Rav Hamnuna. And others say that no, it's always Rav Huna, and Rav Hamnuna, where it says there that Rav Huna said the name of Rabbi, change Rav Huna to Rav Hamnuna. When it says Amram Rav, they said Israel's Rav Yemina. Sholchu Metam, they sent from Israel there Rabbi Shachanina. They laughed at him. They laughed and scoffed at him in Eretz Yisrael. That's Rabbi Loza. So how can it be Abelazar was a student of Yechon. Haklebi, and he was a student of Yechon, of Rav, and of Shmuel, all three. Which is amazing. It says clearly they sent from there according to the words of Yechanin. So how can you tell me that sending from there was Rabbi Yosef Chanin? It says according to the words, wasn't it? Aleifach swapped them around. Sholchum v'tam is Abelazar, and Machkol Marov, and they mocked him in Etzisrael. Rabbi Yosef Barat Chanin. Then we went further. How many people should be living in the city? We said every city needs a Sanhedrin of 23. How many people should be living in the city before we have a Sanhedrin? 100, according to one opinion in the Mishnah, it's 120, and the other opinion doubles that. It says 230. As we'll soon see why. Says the Gemara, why 120? That's just amazing what the Gemara says here. I mean, just think about it. A city of 120 people requires a bezdin of 23. So not only will be disputes, it'll be murder, it'll be events that will cause us to have a bezdin of 23. It's amazing. Maya Vidatayu, why 120? So we say, explain as follows. Esim Vishloisha Keneged Sanhedrin Tana. 23 corresponds to the bezdin of 23. Machlek is if the bezdin of 23 is on top of 120 or including 120. Then you need to have, if you have a bezdin of 23, you need to have potential candidates to replace people who pass away, you retire. Visholosh Shudas Shal Esim Vishloisha. We'll learn later that every bezdin had 3 rows, and it was, I guess, from the beginning was the highest level of students, and they worked its way down, and they kept on moving up. So 3 rows of 23. So now you have 3 rows of 23 and a bezdin of 23. So you have a total of 92 people that's involved in the bezdin in this town. Then you have Asara Batlonin Shabesa Knesset. These 10 Batlonin. Rashi said there were people who actually were in other places. Rashi said they were paid, or others said they were paid to sit and shul all the time to make sure they're available to always to be minyanim. As the Rashi quote said, if David comes to shul, there's nobody present, David gets very, very angry. And it says in Gemara Megillah that any city that doesn't have a Asara Batlonin in it is not a city, it's not a metropolis, but a village. So these are people who are always available in shul to make up a minyan. So that makes another 10 is 102. How do you make it today? 102 people. Then you need Shnei Seifrim. Every bezdin needs 2 Seifrim, 2 scribes, to write down, record, as stenographers, to write down everything what happened. Then you need Shnei Chazonin. Chazonin means see. The word Chayze. They have to see what's going on. And Barashi says the Shnei Chazonim are people who actually were like the Shamish. They were the ones who subpoenaed people to go to bezdin, or they're the ones who executed the bezdin's punishments. And not like we have the chazan in the shul, but it's like the shamish. You have 2 seifrim, you have 2 chazanim, you have shnei baladinim. Every court case needs 2, a plaintiff and a defendant. You need shnei edim, 2 witnesses. You need shnei zaymin. Witnesses have to be able to be repudiated, otherwise they can make up any story they want. And the zaymin themselves have to be able to be repudiated, otherwise they'll make up a story. Shnei zaymin. You need 2 other people in the town that will be able to repudiate the testimony of the zaymin. So we added now another 10 people. Another 10 people. Okay, so you have now another 12 people. So now 12 and 102 is 114. Harimei Besa. Now you need another 6. So the time we learned, any city, don't have the following 10 things. Now the city doesn't have the following things. Bezdin makin bezdin that can punish. Okay, verse 20 where he said. Then you have a kupa shel tzedakah, nigbiz b'shnai. The kupas we already had the chest, and the kupa of tzedakah to collect, to go to people's houses and coerce them to pay tzedakah. You need 2 people. But to distribute, you need 3 because you're like a bezdin. You have to determine how much this person gets, that person gets. So that's already 5 people. That's 5 more people here: 2 to collect and 3 to distribute. And then you need a base knesset or shul, a base merchitz. Others say mikveh. Or base or base kisei, a roife and an umen. A roife is a Rashi says he is a moil, not an ordinary doctor, and an umen is sort of a doctor, a bloodletter. The lavela, you need a sefer to write the mezuzahs and all that. And according to some, v'tabach a butcher, umelamet and a teacher. And the way Rashi explains is, all we need is 6. You already have 5 from the bezdin, and you need 1 person that is can multitask. He's a doctor, he's a reif, he's a moil, he's an umen, and he's a laveler, he's a scribe, and he's a teacher. And that's all 1 person. Abena Hanan learns that no, The Bezin and the distributor and all that, that's included in the 23 judges. He says we need 6 more people. And where the 6 more people? He said the 6 more people are the Reife, the Uman, and the Lavler, and the top of the butcher, and the Lamatanakis. It's a bit difficult. That's 5, not 6. It seems that I don't know for sure, that the Malamed and Tanakis are 2 different people. You need a teacher, you need a student. And therefore you have 6 more. The Shur Akiva in a city you want to live in, af mine peda. You have to have fruits growing in the city. Mine peda me'inis anayim. That the pedas brighten your eyes because otherwise feels like you weaken. It brightens your eyes. The Rambam omits this. The Rambam actually said that pedas are not so good for you. So I guess he doesn't follow Rabbi Akiva. Then the Mishnah continues. Let's finish the Perek. The Mishnah then says on the Chemie says 230, and the reason is the Mishnah says because you need Sarei Asaras, groups of 10, and each judge should have a group of 10 under them. So therefore, if you have 23 judges, you need 230 people living in that town. And we learned the Rebbe says not 230, but Masayim B'Shivim Shiva 277. So the mother, what do you mean? First of all, why the extra 47? We'll see in a minute. And what Tanya learned in the Braisa, Rebbe says Masayim Shivim Shemona 278, 48 extra. Like Kasha, Ha Rabbi Yehuda, Ha Rabban. What's the extra 47, 48? Because we said before that if one of the Dayanim, the 23, say, I don't know, you have to keep on adding 2 people. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you add until 70. According to Chum, you add until 71. So you need, besides the 23, you need another 47 or another 48. So all up. The Gemara says, "Tell them we learned the Samta Leim." Moshe was told you should place on them. Sorry, I love him. Officers over 1,000 people. Then sorry, mates. You have judges over 100 people. You have different groups, different kinds of judges. Sorry, Chamishim judges over 50. Sorry, judges over 10. Now, if you add them up, sorry, I love him. How many judges were there over 1,000 people? Sheish Meir, 600,000 people. Total, that's 600. Sorry, Mayas. How many judges were there over 100 people? Sheish is Allah for 6,000, so there's 600,000 total. Sorry, Chamishim, how many judges were there over groups of 50? They must have 12,000. That makes 600,000. Sorry, Asadas, how many judges were there over 10? You have 600,000. Sheish is Riba, 60,000. Nimtzu comes out, Dayane Yisrael, the judges amongst the Yidden, who were Shivas Ribu, 70,000. 78,600 judges. It's an amazing thing. Ibn Ezra says he doesn't. Ibn Ezra is very strong. He doesn't believe it's possible. It makes sense. Apart from the fact that they were the midbar, how many machlekes can there be right? There's not much business to be done. Everything was provided for them. When they go to control to it, how can you have 15% of the population? A ratio of practically 15% judges. Very difficult to comprehend. And you had that concludes the first Vedic of the Sanhedrin. Okay, have a good day. And a good job.